Today is September 25th, week 3 NFL action. This is the Monday Morning Post. I'm Ryan Sampson, joined by Dexter Henry. We're going to talk about all the week 3 action. We're going to be joined by Frankie Vittorini from UStadium. He's going to break down and give his top takeaways. Dex, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Another great weekend of football. 4 o'clock games were better than I think we thought they would be to some degree, but another good and very interesting week 3.
Very interesting week 3. I thought it was going to be a terrible slate, to be honest with you, looking at these games before the weekend started. And it turned out, like you said, the 4 o'clock games provided a little bit more action than we thought. The Dolphins blew up for 70 points this weekend. I don't think anyone saw that coming. But then I want to start with the Sunday Night Football game because that's the most fresh in my mind. Steelers hang on to beat the Raiders 23-18 after a couple of questionable decisions and questionable play calls. Dex, I want to talk about that fourth quarter and that drive where the Raiders are going down the field. Jimmy G's actually moving the ball effectively. He's getting it to Devontae Adams, who was incredible last night. And there was 2 questionable penalty calls. The first one being that Jimmy G gets sacked by Minkah Fitzpatrick, and they call roughing the passer on Minkah Fitzpatrick for hitting the quarterback, not above the shoulders. It wasn't helmet to helmet. Looked like a regular hit. That's how you're supposed to hit a player in football. It's contact sport. And they call roughing the passer, which gives them a new set of downs and a new set of life. What did you make of that call, first off, of the penalty call?
I mean, I saw you tweet about it, and you saw I responded to you. That looked like football to me, guys. That looked like football. It looked like a regular call. He wasn't leading with the head. His head actually touched Minkah Fitzpatrick, I'm talking about. His head actually touched Jimmy G's shoulder. There was no leading with the head. There was no intent there. It looked like the regular tackle. Good, fine, clean play. Couldn't believe it was called. This is what has fans annoyed when it comes to officiating in the National Football League. It's the inconsistency, right? I'm not somebody to harp on, oh, your team got a call, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, whatever it may be. Calls go either way sometimes, but it's the inconsistency. By letter of the law, that looks like a fine tackle. And then I think what I'm always annoyed is there's no accountability for the officials on that when there is a bad call. What if that had cost the Steelers the game? What if that ends up forcing the game to go into overtime? Now, thankfully for Josh McDaniels, it didn't for them. But, I thought it was a terrible call. Horrible. Yeah. One of the worst I've seen.
So at that point of the game, it was 23-7. The Raiders go after that penalty. They get a new set of downs. They go and score the touchdown, converting the 2-point conversion. It's now 23-15. They're in this game. They force the Steelers on 3 and out, right? They get the ball back. They're driving down the field again. And then all of a sudden, on a chance, mind you, it's 4th and 5 at the Pittsburgh 29-yard line. You are still down at that point 8 points.
8 points.
So you need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Josh McDaniels elects to kick a field goal. Mind you, there is 3 minutes and 11 seconds in this game. You still have to get a stop to get the ball back. And he kicks a field goal. And then they call a penalty on the Steelers again for leverage, which you rarely ever see in an NFL game get called. They call him for that. It's 3 more downs. It's now 4th and 4 at the Pittsburgh 8-yard line, and we're kicking the field goal again. No matter what, Dex, you need a touchdown. I don't understand Josh McDaniels electing to kick the field goal not once, but twice when you're down by 8 points. Either way, you needed a touchdown, and you were going to force your team to make a miracle almost with less than 2 minutes if you get the ball back after you kick that field goal. And mind you, they did get the ball back, and they threw an interception, though. But Pittsburgh ran the clock out. So you're putting all the onus back on your defense. I just don't understand that call there, man.
To your point, you don't know if you're going to get the ball again. You could tell me you want to trust your defense with that amount of time. The first field goal, just over 3 minutes. Might have been able to understand that they still had all of their timeouts. Might have been doing that. But once you got the penalty and then you got it to 4th and 4 from, what was it, from the 8, I believe?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, 4th and 4 from the 8. That made no sense. It was about 2 minutes. It made no sense. I know you feel the timeouts, but Pittsburgh picks up a first down, which they ended up doing when they got the ball back. Game was essentially over, or it was going to be really tough for you to come back without your timeouts. I didn't understand it. As you said, you had to get a touchdown anyway. Look, we've seen this in the last year or so. There's been some questionable coaching in that AFC West division. Some really questionable head-scratching coaching from Brandon Staley to Nathaniel Hackett last year to Josh McDaniels. I don't understand what's going on there at all. So I thought it was a terrible call. I didn't get it. And listen, you got to think about what that stuff does to your team. You talked about how they were struggling for about 2 quarters of the game against the Pittsburgh defense. They're moving the ball. Devontae Adams is getting open everywhere, doing whatever he wants. And then you kill the momentum, show your team you're not, the offense at least, you're not willing to go for it. You don't believe in those guys to get a touchdown, which, as you said, they had to do in that situation.
Questionable play calling, questionable penalties. At the end of the day, though, Steelers get the job done. Mike Tomlin continues to win football games 2-1, even though the offense, it had their spurts, I'll be honest. But listen, credit to the Steelers. They won another game that they needed to in a tough AFC North. Raiders are now 1-2. Devontae Adams had some interesting quotes last night as well about that start. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Frankie Vittorini. He's going to give us all of his top takeaways from all the rest of the games on Sunday. We're joined by Frankie Vittorini of UStadium. Frankie, how you doing, man?
What's up, guys? I'm doing pretty good, Had to witness that debacle yesterday afternoon, but besides for that, I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine.
I'm glad you're okay, Frankie. I'm just glad we had to make sure you're okay. I'm sorry you had to witness what you witnessed with the Jets losing their 15th straight time to the Patriots. It's crazy number.
My Super Bowl prediction done, man. That's
it was
long
done
ago.
on the
My
fourth
Seahawks
snap
one's
of the
still
season.
kind of alive, but my Jets one is out the window. That's for sure.
Fourth snap of the season.
We won't pull up the tape on that one, Frank. We'll let that one.
Please.
So it's a pleasure to be joined by Frankie. Obviously, we're going to talk about some of his top takeaways from Sunday's Week 3 action. But we want to start off right there with the Jets and Patriots. Frankie, this was a brutal watch. Zach Wilson again struggles. Bill Belichick has his number, like with all other young rookie younger quarterbacks. Obviously, just want to get your takeaways. Your fresh of watching that game. What do you think, man? What's going on with the Jets?
Hey, man, I can take this a million directions, but you know what? I'm gonna do something a little bit differently. Thinking about this Zach Wilson and this whole Jets, offense and as a whole. Let's take a step back, right? Let's go back to when Zach was drafted with the 2nd overall pick and his development in this system or as a Jets quarterback. His development's been completely just thrown for a loop since he got here. He should have never, ever have started year 1 in the NFL. He should have sat on the bench for a year or two. The way he played at BYU, the mistakes he was making, the way he was forcing passes, the way that he controlled games at BYU, we all knew was not going to work in the NFL, right? We all knew that he needed time to be able to develop his game, give him time to be able to see the way defenses play, be able to read coverages, be able to pick up on blitzes. He never developed that when he started in the NFL, and he keeps playing today the same way he did 3 years ago when he was drafted. We've never developed the kid, and as a result, you just see him playing like a rookie continuously over and over and over again. So this team at this point, if you look at the way Zach played yesterday, it was probably one of the worst performances I've ever seen from a quarterback that didn't turn the ball over. He could not do anything. He's going to checkdowns where the defender's always within an arm's reach of the receiver. He's literally playing the game like a first-year freshman in college. Literally, this kid is not developing. He is not understanding where to go with the football. He's a one-trick pony, a one-read quarterback. And I don't know at this point who to blame. I'm going to go, obviously, to the top, which is what I usually do. I'm going to look at the owner. I think Woody Johnson threw Zach in there year 1, and you ruin the kid. It's like, the analogy is you drop a glass plate, you can never put it back together again, or a plate. It doesn't have to be glass, but you drop a plate, you drop glass, it'll never be able to be put together the same way again. You don't see many quarterbacks that start early, look this bad, leave, develop, for another 2 years, like Jet fans said we wanted to do with Zach. Let's develop him with Aaron for 2 years, and then bring him back. That timeline really doesn't work. It can work. Geno Smith did a little bit of that. We've seen some quarterbacks who've revived themselves later on, but for the most part, it doesn't work with these top picks. With Zach specifically, at this point, the team's has to move on for the team and for him. The team is done with him. They were done with him last year. We saw with Mike White coming in. We saw with the Mike White shirts and stuff. You know, they don't want Zach anymore. And last year, and now they had no plan B after Rodgers went down. And I still don't understand what Salah's doing, thinking that he's giving us the best chance to win. But as a whole, the team was just so flat yesterday. We were, again, 1 of 10 on third downs. Excuse me, 2 of 14 on third downs. The week before, we were 1 of 10 on third downs. The offense can't do anything. If we complete a 10-yard pass, we all have our hands up in the air and we're celebrating. We had 10 total passing yards in the first half. Zach had 20. In a half of football, we had 20 yards from our quarterback passing in a half of football. Do people realize how crazy that is? I know the next best quarterback's not, around the corner, but you can't run an NFL offense in 2023 when your quarterback is throwing for 20 yards, 10 total yards because he was sacked twice. It's abysmal. It's sad. And for a team that had Super Bowl aspirations coming in, to put the keys to the offense in his hand, who doesn't understand anything, he still plays like a rookie, plays more like a rookie freshman quarterback than a rookie NFL quarterback. It's sad. And at this point, they have to move on. We need new life on offense. Garrett Wilson's getting frustrated. Brees is getting frustrated. We couldn't move the ball against New England. Our defense played well. This is not 1995 where your defense is able to just hold down everyone. You saw with Dallas yesterday against the Cardinals. It's not the way the game's meant to be played now. It's tough to stop everyone like the Ravens used to do in the Bucks. So, yeah, the defense played well. Did they play excellent? Did they force turnovers? No, but they played well. We should have won the game. We didn't. Zach, again, ranks in the bottom 5 in every statistical category imaginable, and that's it. We should have won at the end of the day.
Frankie, I have to wonder, I heard you talk about the development with Zach Wilson there, and we see where he was drafted 2nd overall out of BYU, and I just wonder, when we're thinking about this, maybe he just wasn't that good overall, right? Sometimes I think we look at drafts and it's like, the way where somebody went, we then have the expectation instead of saying, hey, you said looking at the top. They got it wrong. Sometimes the projectors get it wrong in this stuff, and he looks like he was nowhere being close to being drafted 2nd overall. Look, Justin Fields is struggling in Chicago for a plethora of reasons, right? But would you rather have him behind there, or would you rather have Zach Wilson? I'd rather have him. Trey Lance, who went after him, we don't know what he is, right? We have no idea what Trey Lance is because he didn't get the chance to play, really. But I think people would be higher on him than Zach Wilson. I just wonder how much of it is the Jets got this wrong. And if we're being fair, they got this wrong again. They've got it wrong with quarterbacks time and time again. The Jets have not shown the ability to draft a franchise quarterback. And I agree with you that the time is over. The time is over now with Zach Wilson. You can't keep putting him out there. Robert Saleh is saying that it gives the team the best chance to win. But if you look at it, you look in his eyes and you hear his voice, he does not believe what he's saying. You can tell that. He does not even believe what he's saying. Sorry, that's my rant. That's all.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think also what kind of compounds the problem with Zach Wilson is when we drafted him, his style, he needed time. He's a risky kind of quarterback. You see now, he doesn't even want to take the easy crossing routes across the middle. He doesn't like dumping the ball off. The team's forcing him to do that. He's a big play quarterback. He likes to scramble around, buy time, and go down the field. The team's not letting him do that. He can't do that anyway because he's never properly developed and he doesn't read defenses well enough to do that. But it's just a bad situation because you brought him in. He plays this kind of style. He played too early. He still makes the same mistakes. The team is handcuffing him. It's just a bad mix. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't. And just to put it to a bow on this, Zach Wilson, 18 of 36, 157 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. And next up for the Jets, Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs. Can't wait to watch that one as well.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right, Frankie, let's go to our next game I want to talk about here. The Dolphins blow out the Denver Broncos at home, 70-20. Frankie, I don't know the last time or if I've ever seen a team drop 70 on another football team in the NFL. So what do we take away? Is this more on the Dolphins offense? Is that explosive? It's that good? Or is it the Broncos who, mind you, now are 0-3 to start the season? And Sean Payton, are we getting concerned about him, the new coach that was hired there in Denver?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think the Dolphins offense is magical. I think they're able to put guys in positions to make big plays, which is the Mike McDaniel way. He wants to get his best players out in space, and he wants to have his quarterback, Tua, get the ball out as fast as possible and go through the proper reads and just get the ball out and let's make plays. And you see it. And they have playmakers. You know, you have Raheem Mostert, who yesterday had 3 touchdowns. You had the rookie Devon. Yeah, had 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyreek does what Tyreek does. Even when they brought in Mike White, Robbie freaking Chosen, the former Jet, you know, he gets a 68-yard touchdown. Granted, that's at the end of the game. It doesn't matter too much, but that's the style in Miami. Let's run and gun. They have the typical run and gun system, get guys out in space, get the ball out fast, and defending them. Just having Tyreek out there, your safeties, they cannot play, you know, within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. They're going to have to play back because of the threat that Tyreek Hill brings. When they have Waddle, who didn't play yesterday, but when Waddle's in, that threat's even, you know, it's more so. So it's more of a threat. So I think the Dolphins on offense are doing magical things. How long will it last? I don't know. On the other side, Denver is a disaster. I don't know. There's a leadership issue there. I think Sean Payton is a little bit of a used goods, quote unquote, sort of head coach. I think he's got a lot of issues and some mentally might be off up there. Who the hell knows? And then you have the same problem with your quarterback. And it's just, there's no leadership, I feel. That's the biggest thing. I think the biggest takeaway is the Broncos are just not led. They don't have a leader. There's a weird energy and vibe in that locker room, while Miami's just, they're loving life. They got the sun out there. They're feeling good about themselves, running everywhere, all over the place, scoring touchdowns, you know, and you just see it. I want to see with Miami how they can continue that momentum throughout the season. I'm sure if they stay healthy, they're going to be able to score a lot of points, but as we all know, things get different as the weather cools down, even though it doesn't really do too much in Miami, but the game sort of changes once you hit the playoffs. But yeah, that was super impressive, and they're fun to watch. They should have Zach Wilson actually sit down and watch every single snap that Tua's taken from game 1 to game 3, and maybe he'll get some ideas for once. But yeah,
good luck with that.
Yeah. I think one thing to talk about the Broncos, first off, the Dolphins over 726 yards of offense. The Jets can't even get 200 yards passing out of their quarterback. They got 700 yards of offense yesterday. The one thing I want to say with the Broncos,
the Jets don't have 700 yards of offense for the season,
which is insane to say.
It's
insane to say.
Yeah.
But the Broncos, though, something interesting. You brought up a good point about Sean Payton and the leadership style there. I wonder if this is on Russ again. And I ask this because look at the Seahawks and look at what's going on over there with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. They just continue to win football games quietly. It's not explosive. It's not, Geno Smith dropping. He's not Geno cooking like, you heard Russ cooking in those years. It's working well in Seattle since they moved on from Russ. And it's just been all downhill now for Denver now. It seems like in a quarter into this Russell Wilson era in Denver. Are you concerned long term about this partnership between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson? Like, are they going to jive? Like, this has to work. I mean, he signed a long-term deal when they traded for him.
Yeah, to be honest, Ryan, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm very 50-50. I try not to be. If gun to my head, what would I say? I don't think it's going to work. But I do think it takes a little bit of time also for them to gel and figure each other out. I think Russ has some weapons there. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams is coming back from his injury last year, so we'll see how he develops. You could flip, the switch on, as they say. I just don't know if it's going to happen this year. It may take a year or two, and you know how the NFL is. If it's going to take that much time, they may pull the plug and they may say, "Hey, this is taking too long, and we need results instantly." I'm very 50-50, but I would say I don't see it working out. I think the game for both of these, both these guys with Russ and Sean, I just think it's passing them a little bit. Things are different now in the NFL than when they started, than when they were young in the league. So it's fast now, man. It's a fast game. You got to score a lot of points. You have to be different. You have to treat your players differently now than you used to. I don't think Sean Payton gets that. Some of these old head coaches don't understand that. And it just could be a bad mix overall. Russ might not be the kind of quarterback that he's not the kind of quarterback that the Broncos thought. He's not going out there, even though he's been playing well, decently well this year, but he's not putting up as many points as maybe they thought he would. You have teams putting up 70. They put 70 on you. Is Russ able to put up consistently, 24 to 30 points a game? I don't know. I don't think so anymore, unless that running game's there. So I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. Gun to my head, I don't think it's going to work long term. I think they'll blow that thing up in a year or so.
I have a feeling they're going to blow it up too, Frankie. And I think that Ryan makes a good point in what he was alluding to there, which is you got to look at what Seattle's done. That matters here. Seattle has found something with Geno Smith. They developed it. Trust good organizations, and good organizations do this. And I'm sure we're going to get to this with the Packers too. Good organizations get off when something's a sunk cost. They realize when somebody's past their prime. They realize when it's a wrap, and they'll get off of it. Bad organizations don't have a plan or try to fit and do that. And I think Seattle's been a good organization. We've seen what they've done with Pete Carroll. You see what's happening with Geno Smith. And I like Russ. Russ was a fantastic quarterback, went to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. Great job. But he doesn't look the same. He looks better than he did last year. I'm with you on that, Frankie. But he doesn't look the same anymore. Can he elevate your team to that level? I might say no, he can't. So I think the Broncos, they're in trouble. The Payton stuff, Ryan, I'm intrigued to hear how you feel about this too. The Payton stuff, does he work with Russ? Does he work with the rest of the team? Has the game passed him by? We know him as a good coach, but we don't know what he could do without Drew Brees. We have no idea of that.
He's definitely an old school coach. He's disciplinary. He comes from Bill Parcells' coaching tree, so he's learned under Parcells. I think that style still works. I think that coaching style still works. I mean, you see Vic Fangio in Miami Dolphins defense still plays well. I don't think he has the quarterback he wants, to be frank. And to Frankie's point, I could see it blowing up in the air just because I don't think that marriage works well. It's a little bit of a forced relationship with with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. And I'm sure he dreams about having Drew Brees running his offense like he could in Denver. But Frankie, Dex brought up a good point about the Packers. That's the other game I wanted to hit on here as well. 17-point comeback in the fourth quarter against the Saints, who lost their quarterback in Derek Carr to a shoulder injury. Jordan Love, kid's playing good football, man. I mean, what can you say about the Packers and the way they put their full belief in this kid? Mind you, he's down his number one running back and arguably his most talented receiver in Christian Watson, or one of his most explosive playmakers. This is a good Saints defense, and he went in and he put 18 points up in the fourth quarter. What'd you take away from that game, man?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if they didn't lose that game last week to Atlanta, they'd be 3-0, Green Bay. And if you look at the way that they look at the quarterback position, They just do it right. Green Bay for forever time has always gotten the quarterback right. And they practice one thing, which I think is just a dying art. I think we can all say we struggle with it. It's patience. They preach patience. Let's draft this kid in 2020. Let him sit and learn, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, for 3 years, maybe more if it's needed. And you look at other coaches that have done similar things, like Andy Reid with Mahomes. Granted, that wasn't as long of a developmental period for Pat, but still, it's about patience at the position. You do not want to rush a kid in like the Jets did with Zach, not to keep bringing it back to the Jets, and then you just stunt their development. You ruin them in a way, and Green Bay just got it right. I had a weird feeling they were going to have a good year. I think they were, bottom 10 on most charts for, wins and whatnot, but they just look like they are a professional team. They have a quarterback that knows exactly where he's going with the ball. He goes through his reads, and he looks like a professional, and he's got a nice arm too. Big kid, 6'4". I liked him when he was drafted. I thought he was really good. I thought that was a good pick by them, and we'll see how the season and the next couple of years plays out. But Jordan Love has been the guy that they wanted when they drafted him day one, and Green Bay sitting at 2-1 in that division too. They might be able to make a run at a wild card spot. So Green Bay just did it right. They got him a bunch of receivers too, some young kids out there. They have the running backs with Aaron Jones and Dillon. So we'll see how that plays out. And they have some good weapons on defense. They have some good talent on defense. So I'm curious to see how the season plays out, but I just love the fact that they actually developed someone and didn't push the envelope trying to make the quarterback thing work. It's just, it's the hardest position to play in sports, right? I mean, can we agree with that?
Yeah.
There's no other position. Yeah. It's physical. It's mental. You need to lead. The team needs to like you. You have to put in the time. There's every single variable you can possibly imagine for an athlete to go through. The quarterback needs to be elite at 8 out of 10 things. And if you're not, you're going to be exposed. So they know with someone like Love, they needed to teach him for 3-4 years, and they did. And he's playing well. It's not a coincidence, honestly.
There you go. Not a coincidence, Frankie. Not a coincidence that it happened with Green Bay again. We saw this with Aaron Rodgers sitting under Brett Favre. Now, I mean, I don't want to jump the train on Jordan Love, but I don't think it's a coincidence. It goes to the point I made before. Good organizations do this. The Packers have shown to do that. I don't think it's any coincidence this is happening again. I think it's a great point that you're raising there. And Jordan Love looks like he's primed for success. He's only going to get more confident after this comeback over New Orleans on Sunday. The confidence is only going to grow for him and the team as they believe in him and his ability. So, yeah, I agree with you 100% on this. I'm not saying it's going to work like this for other teams, but it'd be interesting if other teams had more patience in terms of developing their quarterbacks. It would be interesting.
Yeah, and I think, listen, Jordan Love's not lighting up the box score, but what he is doing, he's playing good football, and he's helping the team win games, which is most important. And to Frankie's point, they're developing in the right way. This is the first year he's actually getting real action, and he's playing these defenses, and he's seeing these looks. It's impressive. It really is. It's impressive that the Packers are continuously able to churn out these quarterbacks. Frankie, another game we wanted to hit on here. Bills Commanders. Now, I thought the Commanders were going to put up a good fight here because the Commanders have I think a really good defense, but the Bills just smacked them around 37-3. Are we more impressed with the Bills and the fact that after that week one, loss to the Jets, that they put together two really impressive wins back-to-back weeks?
Yeah. The interesting thing with that game was, and I said something similar the week before when the Bills were playing the Raiders, a bunch of people on Twitter and on, social media and whatnot on UStadium were saying that the Raiders were going to beat the Bills. Oh, watch, they're going to beat them. The Bills aren't that good. And my response was, not to say I was right, but I said, the Bills are in a different class as a team than the Raiders. Now, that doesn't mean the Raiders can't win. It's any given Sunday always, but it's apples and oranges in the NFL, and you want to be the apple, right? So I just think the Bills are just a better team, a better organization. They've been together longer. And that's what matters with Buffalo. Jet fans, we beat them. We play them well because of our matchups and how our defense matches up against them. But if you watch them against other teams, they blow the brakes off of teams. They really do. And that's because it's a cohesive unit. They've had the same quarterback. They've had the same head coach. They've had the same GM. They've had the same coaches, positions, coaches. So the team understands what they want to do and they get each other. And a game plan isn't something that they haven't practiced and, played with for multiple, for 10, 15, 20 times. The Commanders are new. They have a new quarterback. They have a new system. They are trying to piece things together. And when you play a team that's experienced like Buffalo and has that talent, that's what you're going to get on some Sundays. It's just not going to make sense because you don't get your game plan yet. You're not confident being Washington. And then you have the Bills. We've run this 150 times live, a lot of it too. So it's just a different kind of game, I think, at that point. But Buffalo also found somebody who I'm a big fan of. You look at James Cook. Yeah. They've been looking for a running back for quite some time. I mean, Cook's having a really good start to the season. He's averaging over 6 yards a carry. I have him in fantasy, so I've been looking at him a little bit. But he's been good, man. He's a piece they needed. You needed it. It can't always be Allen and Diggs. Teams are gonna figure that out. They needed somebody else, and then by bringing in someone like a Cook and starting him and drafting Kincaid, although he hasn't gotten going just yet, but you allow with another player or two in there, it allows you to then have a Gabe Davis go and catch a 50-yard touchdown pass. It just opens things up for you where it's not just Allen and Diggs. So I think Buffalo on offense has gotten better, honestly, as just being unbiased. They have, and their defense I think's always been just solid. They have Milano. They have a bunch of just heavy hitters back there. So I think Buffalo's is one of the teams to beat in the AFC. It's the reality. They're in that upper echelon class of teams. That's where I put them. I put them with the Chiefs, the Eagles, the 49ers. They're right up there. So they're going to beat a team like Washington if their game plan's a little bit all over the place. They're going to beat them big.
Yeah, it's definitely an impressive, like the Bills defense is definitely impressive as well. Like Dex was talking about a little bit earlier about Sam Howell turning the ball over in crucial time. It was impressive by the Bills again. Like, and next weekend we're going to get in the Bills Dolphins. It's going to be an awesome game. I'm looking for, it's game of the week in my opinion. Obviously, like it's going to be a fun watch there. Obviously, the two top of the AFC East there. One last thing I want to touch on you, Frankie, the Jaguars Texans game. That was the biggest shocker to me yesterday. The Jaguars were picked by a lot of people to be the class of the AFC South, to be the top and also possibly an AFC champion contender. They got the doors beaten off them. I mean, 37-17 against the Texans, a team that's in the first year with a brand new head coach and a rookie quarterback. What's going on with the biggest thing with the Jaguars? What's going on with this offense? It doesn't look good right now.
Yeah, I think they're trying to figure out who is their go-to player on offense, and they're trying to see who can be that guy that other defenses will fear coming into Jacksonville or just playing them. How are you going to Jacksonville wants to take on a personality that you can't stop our offense because we're better than you. We have Trevor Lawrence and we have all these weapons. But which weapon are you depending on? We were just talking about Buffalo with Diggs. Diggs is your go-to guy on offense, and teams fear him, and they may, send extra coverage his way, and they may do things to stop him. You play Jacksonville, it's like, whatever, we'll play our base defense. We'll see who it is. Is it ETN? Is it Christian Kirk? Is it Calvin Ridley? They drafted this kid Tank Bigsby in the draft. Is it him? Nobody knows. And none of them are really showing, outside of Ridley maybe in week 1, that they're dangerous players. You can stop these guys. And Trevor's not playing well. I don't know what's up with him. It's been a little bit of a weird thing to start the season because people thought he was going to come in and maybe be an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
He's not been playing well. He's ranked 26 now in QBR in the league. Sam Howell's above him, Daniel Jones, Stroud. So, I mean, Mac Jones. I mean, that's not where we expected Trevor Lawrence at all to be ranked. Never mind in a 2-week period. Now it's 3 weeks, going on 3 weeks. And even late last year, he was struggling. So there's something up with that offense, I think, where they're trying to figure out who are we on offense? Who are we? What do we want to do? We want to run the ball. They tried yesterday. They had 27 carries, 116 yards, which is solid, decent day. But they don't know what they want to do. And I think that's affecting their tempo. And I think once they figure out whether it's Ridley as their go-to big play guy, or it's ETN that's going to be a beast on the ground, or it's Kirk who can do a lot of things in the slot, they're going to, take off and take the next step. But I never thought they were battle tested also. If we're talking about on the defensive side, I never thought they were really battle tested and played in tough games, although they had that playoff game last year. But Houston came out and they wanted to win, and they threw the ball all over the field. They couldn't make tackles. Jacksonville, there's guys running, everywhere. So they need some time. I think they need some time. And yeah,
it's interesting situation there in the AFC South, because you look at the Colts now leading that division at 2 wins, which is crazy to think about, because a lot of people thought the Colts were going to be the worst team in that division with a rookie, or one of the worst teams with the Texans. And they put up a big win, obviously, yesterday against the Ravens in overtime. Frankie, anything else you want to talk about on week 3? I'm opening up the floor to you. Do you have anything else that you really want to talk about from your week 3 action?
You know what? Not necessarily. I just think looking at the teams in general today, looking at where they stand, a lot of these offenses, I think you're starting to finally see NFL defenses catching up with offenses. Last year's draft, there wasn't a quarterback picked in the top, I think 15. You saw a bunch of new sort of styles on defense now that teams are playing a mixture between zone and man. These pass rushers are just all over the place. We don't have any as a Jets fan, shockingly. But for the most part, every team can get some pressure on the quarterback, and the closeout speed you see in the game now is just something I've never really seen before at this level. And you're starting to see quarterbacks that you wouldn't think would struggle. Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson. It's the game's changing in a good way. There was a point when we all thought, oh, this is becoming a flag football league, and what's going to happen, and it's not going to be rough and rowdy, and it's not going to be, your old school kind of style of game. But that's not true. I don't think. I think defenses are starting to get their stuff together. Teams are drafting defensive players high, and the games are fun again. I guess they've always been fun, but I like defensive games. I like seeing a defense get a big hit, or I'm not a 50 to 48 shootout kind of guy.
70 to 20.
Yeah, 70 to 20.
Yeah, I like a little balance in the game. So it's some balance in the game. It's always good. Yeah.
Well, Frankie, I appreciate you as always. Thank you for coming on and breaking down all the week 3 action with us, man.
Hey, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much. And then I owe you guys dinner. Dexter, we got to get dinner, man. Who's the other guy, the producer you had? He wanted to go to Astoria Seafood.
Oh, that was Lee. Lee wanted to get the Greek spot in Astoria. Lee loves hitting all the restaurants. So yeah. We'll have to do that. Frankie, we're gonna do dinner. We're gonna do dinner soon, man. But
Ryan, you could come. All right.
All right, thanks, man.
UStadium pay, so don't worry about it. We got you, dude. Get whatever you want. Just don't get too much wine. Actually, we'll split it.
That's me. You got to worry about.
Yeah, he's the wine connoisseur. Thanks, Frankie.
All right, Frankie. Peace, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
That was Frankie Vittorini from UStadium. You can check him out on UStadium app. They talk a lot of football there. Great content there over there. And appreciate him as always to come on and do some football talk with us. Dex, last game I want to talk about here is Chargers Vikings, 2 0-2 teams going into last week, and going into this week. And the Chargers come out on top 28-24 after a shootout back and forth. Vikings had some chances there at the end. Kirk Cousins couldn't get it into the end zone. You saw the pass he attempted to TJ Hawkinson, goes off his hands, goes for an interception. What did you make of this? What are you thinking about here? Because I have a take here about these two teams.
Yeah, so okay, like the Vikings, here's what's interesting with the Vikings, right? So they're 0-3 now. All of the games they've lost are by 6 points or less. Last year, we saw them win all these close games. I was never a believer in that team last year. I think I told you this. I was never a believer with them last year. So I'm not surprised. The secondary still hasn't had the improvement I thought it would. Maybe we thought Brian Flores, who's a fantastic defensive coach, we thought he'd have more of an impact there. Haven't seen that. I just still never trusted the Vikings. On the Chargers side, and we talked about this the last couple of weeks with the Chargers. Okay, maybe you feel good now they won a game, but were you really impressed with them on the defensive side of the ball in this game? Absolutely not. Offensively, Justin Herbert did his thing, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns. You saw the 18 receptions and a career high, I think it was 205 yards for Keenan Allen. Very, very impressive there too. But defensively, they're not still able to get stops when you think it matters. You know, the Vikings, they had chances here. Obviously a missed field goal. It seemed like the same old Chargers, not really able to put a team away when they're supposed to. I'm not sure. I don't still trust Brandon Staley as a head coach at all whatsoever. The defense is still suspect to me. So I still think there's a lot of question marks. Look, one of these teams had to win. Somebody was going to be 0-3. Somebody was going to be 1-2. The Chargers probably saved themselves a lot of headache. There's still going to be a lot of scrutiny on them. But am I impressed with either of these two teams coming out of this game? No. I'm impressed still with Justin Herbert, who's a talent, but I feel like some of this is still being wasted if you don't trust the defense to get stops in big spots. This is going to come to bite them in the butt sometime because you're not sure if they're going to be able to get this done. What happens when there's better opponents that has a better defense? What are the Chargers going to do then? So I still have a lot of questions about the Chargers. The Vikings, Ryan, I might say this. Is it possible they could be the worst team in their division this year? It's possible. I mean, well, the Bears are pretty bad. Sorry, the Bears are so bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to think about it for a second. I was like, no. The Bears are so bad. That's not going to happen, right? The Bears are so terrible, and that's another story for another day. But the Vikings, until they fix their issues, especially with the secondary and how everybody can just pass on them so easily, I don't see it much better with Kirk Cousins. Well, I think they're a mediocre team. Go ahead.
No. So look, one of these teams had to win this game, right? Unless it ended in a tie. So we knew this was going to be a shootout going into this game. A lot of points were scored. A lot of yards were put up. Justin Herbert proved how elite he is. 405 yards passing, like you talked about, 3 touchdowns. Impressive. And the fact that they're doing this without their best, probably their second best weapon or their best weapon in Austin Eckler, who's dealing with an ankle injury. But on the flip side, like you said, the Vikings, I think they're done. Obviously, they're not making the playoffs. 0-3, that is tough to get up from. I don't even care if you're in a weak NFC. And their schedule is not easy, mind you, the rest of the way also for them. I think they're going into this now thinking Justin Jefferson's in the 4th year of his deal. Are we going to, they're going to try and sign him long-term, right? But what are you going to do with the most important position, the quarterback? I like Kevin O'Connell, their head coach. I think he's actually a smart guy, got a good offense. But what are you going to do with Kirk Cousins? Are you going to keep him long-term? Are you going to sign him to another extension? Or are you going to move on from him at the end of the year and say, let's go find someone else? And then are you trying to convince your star wide receiver, who is the best wide receiver in football, and Justin Jefferson, saying, oh, can you help us develop a new young rookie quarterback that we're going to probably draft, or someone else that we're bringing in? It's a tricky situation in Minnesota. Their defense is still horrible. They cannot stop the pass. It's crazy. And on the flip side, the Chargers, listen, you want to shoot out. I'm not a fan of the head coach. I love their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. I love Justin Herbert. They're talented beyond belief, but they still just, they haven't proven much to me. And they're in a very tough AFC West. I mean, the Chiefs look like legit Super Bowl contenders again after yesterday. I mean, granted, they beat the worst team in football, but they keep winning football games. That's all that matters. It was a fun game going back and forth, but again, I don't know what to make of these two teams. You thought these two teams were going to be playoff teams, and I still have my doubts about the Chargers going into the playoffs this year, if they can even make it in a very tough AFC.
Yeah, and I think your doubts are there because of their defense. I was just pulling up their schedule, Ryan, because they've got coming up this week in week 4, they've got the Raiders. Then they're hosting the Raiders and they're hosting the Cowboys, and they're at the Chiefs. The next 2 weeks before you get to that Chiefs game, and you would think they need to take care of business against the Raiders if they want to be who they think that they are, right? If they fancy themselves as a playoff team, you got to win that game at home against the Raiders. Now you're back at 2-2. Cowboys can be tough. We know the defense is good. They're going to be looking to bounce back after the loss to
Yep.
Arizona this week. And then you're going to have to go to Arrowhead and play the Chiefs. And you mentioned the Chiefs. The Chiefs look like a well-oiled machine. I said this yesterday in the top 5 video talking about Patrick Mahomes. Remember, we were all worried, not all of us, but some of us were worried about the Chiefs after week 1 and all the drop passes. You knew they were going to figure it out, and the Chiefs did what they had to do, stomp them. So this Charger team, what it comes down to, Ryan, is this defense going to look like the defense that we thought they were supposed to be with the talent they have? Are they going to be able to get stops? Can you do, Chargers, can you stop Jimmy G, who at moments looked good against Pittsburgh last night? Can you stop him? Can you do that? Can you make life frustrating for Dak Prescott? We'll see. If they do that with their offensive talent, I'm with you. I like Kellen Moore as an offense coordinator, the whole nine, all that. They can be a good team. It's just, can I trust you to get stops and spots? And are you going to, make the right play? Brandon Staley also got away. Let's just be clear. He went for it. What was that? He went for it on fourth and 1 when the ball was, I forget exactly where the ball was on their own side of the field. And had they lost the game, we'd be talking about this completely differently, Ryan. We'd be killing him, which I know you'd like to do again.
4th and 1 at the Chargers 24 with 151 left in the game.
151 to go. Okay, sometimes I like the gutsy call, right? But here's the thing. When your defense hasn't been playing to the level that you think that they should, which we've been talking about the last couple of weeks.
And you're a defensive-minded coach.
Mm-hmm. Should you really be making that call? They haven't proven anything to us for you to make that call. I like aggression. I like going for it. I like trying to end the game. I'm always here for that. But the defense hasn't looked good. You're a defensive-minded coach. You should have the pulse of the defense. You're not having all that. So I think what we're saying in a nice way, Ryan, is we don't trust the Chargers.
No, I don't.
That's all we're saying. That's all we're saying.
Long term, do not trust the Chargers, not until they get a new head coach.
Right.
Dex, that's our week 3 recap. Tonight we got doubleheader, Monday Night Football, Eagles, Bucks, Rams, Bengals. We don't know Joe Burrow's situation. Obviously, questionable going into tonight. Real quick. Anything you're really looking forward to between those two games?
Yeah, I'm looking to see the Bucks, who have still yet to commit a turnover here. I'm very intrigued to see are they still able to do that against this Eagles team? Do the Eagles take care of business? I believe they're 5.5-point favorites. Are they able to take care of business? This one, that's interesting. On the other side, Rams and the Bengals. Yes, it really comes down to, is Joe Burrow going to play? And if he doesn't, Cincinnati, who struggled offensively, can they still do this? The Rams, they've been better offensively than we have thought thus far this year. And I think that has a lot to do with some good coaching. Sean McVay is a fantastic coach doing that. Can they make this competitive? Can they steal a game here? And if they steal a game here, this is trouble for the Bengals in a very competitive AFC North. The Bengals need this win. They need Burrow to play, but they also need this win very badly.
Yeah, like I said, 0-3 is a tough hole to build yourself out of and even try to get in the playoffs. It's a desperate team, obviously, in the Bengals, but I got 2 words for you. Puka Nacua. That kid is coming in and he is looking to light it up. It's been fun watching him the first couple of weeks. And I think these are going to be 2 fun games, honestly. I hope Joe Burrow plays, because it always makes for better football when Joe Burrow plays. But I'm looking forward to some Monday night action. Dex, thank you so much for doing week 3 NFL recap with us. This is the Monday Morning Post. If you're watching this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the New York Post Sports YouTube channel. You can watch all kinds of content. If you want to watch more about the Jets, gang's all here. Jake Brown, Brian Costello, obviously the Blue Rush podcast. They'll do a preview for Monday Night Football next week of Seahawks versus Giants. Catch them. This is where we do all our football content. And Dex, like I said, appreciate you as always, man.
Appreciate you too, brother. Be well. Ready for week 4.